And one more thing we're going to do before we get started is review a few principles. These are things that we're going to work on no matter whether we're standing, lying down on the mat, on our side, any position we're in, we're going to use these principles. And they're very simple. There are three principles. Now the first one is called the long neck. And I'm going to refer to this throughout our exercises to remind you. The long neck is this. Pretend that you have a rope attached to the crown of your head. Not your forehead, but the crown of your head. And somebody is pulling you up by that rope. And what happens is that your chin dips slightly and you feel a little bit like a Marine. It's actually lengthening your spine. The second principle is a firm core. Now this is the classic part of Pilates. Pilates is, every exercise is focused on strengthening this area of your body. It's strengthening everywhere, but it's particularly strengthening this area that rarely gets attention. So there's several techniques we use to firm the core. And one is a classic way of doing it, which is called navel to spine, literally trying to bring your navel to your spine. Another way of doing this is, we call it a C curve in your abdominals. Another way of doing this is to scoop the abs. But I prefer a very simple technique, and that is simply squeeze your buttocks. What happens is that all these many muscle groups around the center of your body become activated simply by squeezing your buttocks. So try that. The third principle we're going to review is called the Pilates Stance. And this is simply finding your natural turnout. And this is a wonderful thing about Pilates. There's no more unnatural movement. It's all using the natural stance of your body. And the first thing we're going to do is find our natural turnout, whatever that is for you. Some people it's parallel feet. Most of us it's a slight V in your feet. And some of us it's the heels touching. Doesn't have to. In other words, what is natural for your physique, your body? So find that for a moment. Now let's put all three of them together. The Pilates stance, your natural turnout. Activate your core by squeezing your buttocks. And finally, finding your long neck. Let's review the same three principles on our back. And this is to emphasize that no matter what Pilates position we're in, we're using these three principles. Okay, the first one is our long neck. Just pretend that your spine is as long as you can feel it, possibly. Your chin is going to slightly dip. Your legs and feet are in a natural turnout. Nothing that feels uncomfortable at all with the position of your legs and feet. And finally, let's do a little different thing with our firm core. Instead of squeezing the buttocks, I want you to do something different. And that is take the small of your back, that little place, lower back, and touch your mat. Just turn your hips under a little bit so you can touch the small of your back to the mat. Okay? Now, to do that, you have activated your core. It's wonderful. So, let's put it all together. Nice long neck, natural turnout with the legs, and that small of the back touching the mat. And one more thing I want you to notice, and that is a shift in breathing. When we're doing Pilates and we're keeping our core firm, you can't belly breathe. It's very difficult. And that's not to say belly breathing is bad. It's just that when we're doing Pilates and keeping the core firm, we're breathing deeply in our chest. And I like to take a couple of chest breaths just to tell my body that it's okay to chest breathe, because we're belly breathing throughout our day. We're not used to it. So take a couple of breaths. And by the way, it doesn't matter at this point what your breathing pattern is, as long as it's natural and as big as you can make it. Breathing through the nose, the mouth, doesn't matter at this point.